Switching over to the offensive side, there was a pair of running backs coming through, Chris Warren out of Rockwall High School, and then you also got Jay Bradford out of Splendora, who both, Warren already had an offer before camp. Bradford elicited an offer after a good performance at camp. What are some things about these guys that have really been impressing?
Well, just, looking at it, they're the exact opposite. I mean, Chris Warren's a guy who's 225 pounds, really projects as a power back. You look at him and he's really muscular, but at the same time, once he gets into a college weightlifting program, he's a guy that could be 235, 240 pounds and could still play the running back position. I think his feet are probably a little bit quicker than Joe Bergeron's were at the same stage. I think he's faster than Joe Bergeron was at the same stage, and I think he's somebody that could play running back, and that's really what he wants to do. Dad was a couple-time All-Pro in the NFL, so he knows a little bit, about that. And then, Bradford is just speed. I mean, he ran a 4.32 here at Texas camp. I heard he ran even faster than that at Texas A&M camp, which is amazing to think about. And then when they ran routes, he was a guy that caught the ball like a wide receiver. He really separated from linebackers. There wasn't anybody who could cover him. Talking about, him earlier, I would have loved to see Anthony Wheeler try to keep up with Bradford down the sidelines on a go route. But, he really separated from everybody and looked fantastic catching the ball, and is a guy with just a lot of speed.
You touched on Warren's size. When he walked into the room, he was one of those guys that we were both like, oh, he's definitely a Division I prospect. And a lot of coaches have talked to him from different programs about playing on the defensive side of the ball. Do you ultimately, if Warren is to continue to get bigger, do you ultimately see him staying on offense?
I think he can stay on offense. I think the tricky thing for him is going to be deciding, along with whoever his college coaching staff is, where he has the most potential. Because there are some guys that get into college, they're not happy with being the number 2 running back or the number 3 running back, and they look across the field and they see, okay, I could be the starting will linebacker tomorrow, and they go ahead and make that switch. And there are still other guys who maybe even are further down the depth chart, or the number 4 running back, number 5 running back, and they refuse to make the change because they say, I'm a running back, that's what I do, I'm never going to change. And I get the feeling with Warren, he wants a real legitimate shot to play running back. And if he gets that, it's really hard to say what the next step is going to be. I think that he could be a potential pro at either position, but most people think, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with them, that his ceiling is higher on the defensive side, just because you don't see a lot of guys that big who run that well like he does.
Now, the Longhorns are not known for giving a lot of offers out at quarterback. This year seems to be very different, with 5 out right now. I know we had a chance to see 3 of those guys at camp. Who out of the bunch has really impressed you?
Well, I think the guy that impressed me was the guy that you saw before you came down here when you were in California, is Ricky Town. And, just talking to Brandon Huffman, our West Coast guy, Town is a guy that projects to maybe be the top quarterback in the country. So, I mean, that's not really any surprise. But he came in, he had a great arm, was incredibly accurate, made throws at every level, and he looked so much more polished and ready as a product than everybody else. And you look at some of those other guys. Jarrett Stidham had a fantastic camp on the second, really had a rifle arm, ran a 4.65 40. Another guy who had a great camp was at June 9th camp was Kason Virgil, had a fantastic camp, and he earned an offer after that camp. But at the same time, I think at this point, if you're looking at the 3 guys that we had a chance to see, I don't think there's any doubt that Town is the most impressive of that bunch.
And aside from his abilities on the field, one thing that really always impressed me about Town, right before his junior season, or his sophomore season last year, I spoke with him at a 7-on-7 camp, and he actually wasn't the starter yet, just transferred into St. Bonaventure, and he told me, I'm going to be the starter next year. And then come to find out, they haven't done any sort of competition or anything, but Town has that belief in himself, and I think that's one of the reasons he continues to perform so well. He's very even keel, which is something you definitely need in a quarterback. So looking at that quarterback position, how many quarterbacks do you think that the Longhorns would accept commitments from?
Well, I think that they could take 1 or they could take 3, and it really depends on how everything balances out in terms of who accepts offers and who doesn't. The 2 people that we haven't mentioned so far who have offers are J.W. Ketchum out of Fort Bend Marshall, and then also Kyler Murray out of Allen. And I think that Kason Virgil is probably going to be the first domino to fall in this. I think Texas is going to take him. I think that he really likes what Texas has to offer. And I think that he's a guy that really has a chance to be the first guy in. Having said that, even if you get him, and even if you were to get, say, a J.W. Ketchum or a Stidham or somebody like that, as you know, a guy like Ricky Town is somebody you wait for. And I think that if they don't get Town, it'll probably be 2 quarterbacks in this class. If they do get Town, I wouldn't be surprised to see them take 2, sort of wait out the process with Town as he goes through his visits and he decides, and then they take him at the end of the process.
Definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch. As we mentioned earlier, very unique this year. So make sure to keep it right here at Longhorn Digest for all of the latest on Texas football and recruiting alongside Kevin Flaherty. I'm Annabelle Stefan, Fox Sports.